Hello. Okay, so today we are going to look at what is called biodiversity and sustainability in our ecosystems. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. You'll need to be on page 28 in your journal. We glued this in today, so you already have it there. Today you will simply fill in the blanks as you watch and listen to each slide in the video. If for some reason you forgot to bring your journal home, then you can always complete this on loose leaf paper and then put it into your journal once you get back to school. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Biodiversity, I know that's kind of a big word. All it refers to is the number of different species of plants and animals that live in an area. Okay, so if you think of an ecosystem, you have a certain number of animals and plants that are living there. Okay, so species just refers to basically one type of organism. So you could have the bird species or the grass species. And biodiversity just refers to how much of each species is in that specific place. Okay? Why is biodiversity important? It is important for the survival of the organisms that live there. Having many different species living in one area is going to better allow ecosystems to recover from any type of change or disturbance in the ecosystem. Okay, so think about when we talked about succession. We know that anything can disturb the ecosystem. Catastrophic event like a wildfire, humans can disturb it or change the ecosystem as well. And if there's more organisms there and it's balanced, then that ecosystem is going to be able to recover easily. Okay, so that's why biodiversity is so important to ecosystems and habitats. Okay, so like I said, the greater the biodiversity, that means the greater number and variety of species living in an ecosystem. Okay, so instead of having one type of tree, you might have 5 or 6 different types of trees. That's more of a variety and a greater number. Okay, so if a ecosystem has a greater number and variety of species living, we're going to say that it has a greater level of biodiversity. Biodiversity goes hand in hand with what we call sustainability. Okay, sustainability is basically the stableness of the ecosystem. Okay, so it's the ability of an ecosystem to remain diverse, stable, and productive. Okay, so if it's thriving and growing and doing the things it needs to do in the ecosystem, then it's sustainable. Okay, the greater the number and variety of species in an area, the more sustainable that ecosystem will be. Okay, think about it. I'm so sorry. I don't know why this keeps popping up. Think about an ecosystem. Okay, if you've only got one type of species there and it dies off, is there anything left to help sustain that ecosystem? No. Okay, but if you have more species there and some die off, it's got a greater chance of surviving. Okay, so the sustainability and the stability of an ecosystem is directly related to its level of biodiversity. The greater the biodiversity of that community, meaning it's going to have a greater number of species, the ecosystem can handle more stress. Okay, that stress could be human impact, it could be disease impact, it could be catastrophic event impact. Okay, but the greater the biodiversity, the more stress that ecosystem can handle. The lower the biodiversity, the less stable the environment, and it's not going to be able to handle that stress very well. Okay, remember way back when we talked about ecological succession? Okay, it plays into biodiversity as well. Okay, we talked about how succession helps to rebuild the ecosystem. Another way to say that is basically the ultimate goal of succession is to rebuild that ecosystem's biodiversity after a disturbance. Okay, remember we started with just a little bit. Okay, if you have just this little bit, just the grass and the weeds, and a disturbance happens, it's not going to be able to survive as well. But once we get back to our climax community and we've got multiple species, we've got lots of different organisms, then it's going to be able to recover more easily from some sort of disturbance. Okay, so The ultimate goal of succession is to rebuild the biodiversity of that ecosystem. Okay, so let's review. Okay, so here's the key points that you need to know for tomorrow. Biodiversity is the number and variety of species in an ecosystem. The greater the number of species, the greater the variety of the species, the greater the biodiversity. And the greater the biodiversity of that ecosystem, the more sustainable that ecosystem will be, and the easier it will be able to recover from any stress that might impact that ecosystem. Okay, so tomorrow we will see that a little bit more in action. Please make sure you have your notes filled out. Please be ready to tell me what biodiversity and sustainability are, and I will see you tomorrow.